You are 6 months old, and the world has no jars, no spoons, and no baby formula. Your mother places something warm against your lips. It is soft, smoky, and already partly chewed. For most of human history, this was baby food. A prehistoric baby did not move from milk to a neat bowl of puree on a fixed schedule. Feeding was slower, messier, and far more dependent on the people nearby. Your first food was almost certainly human milk. After that, you probably tasted whatever your family ate, transformed by fire, stone, saliva, and patience. But how can anyone know what entered the mouth of a baby thousands of years ago? Soft food disappears. Wooden bowls rot. Animal skins decay. Even the tiny hands that once held a piece of roasted root leave almost nothing behind. Archaeologists therefore look for clues in teeth, bones, cooking vessels, and the lives of recent hunter-gatherer communities. None of these clues gives a complete menu. Together, they reveal a surprisingly intimate picture. The first answer is simple. Milk came first. Human babies are born unusually helpless. Your brain, gut, and teeth are still developing. Breast milk provides energy, water, fat, and immune protection in a form your body can use. It was also portable. There was nothing to mix, sterilize, or carry. In a world where clean water was never guaranteed, milk straight from the breast avoided many dangers linked to stored food. Researchers can sometimes see this ancient milk history inside teeth. In 2013, Tanya Smith, Manish Arora, Christine Austin, and their colleagues studied the chemical pattern of barium in teeth. Barium is an element that passes from a mother into her milk and becomes locked into a child's growing tooth. Like rings in a tree, the changing bands can record when nursing began, when other foods appeared, and when breastfeeding stopped. One Neanderthal child in their study seems to have received only breast milk for about 7 months. Other foods were then added, while nursing continued. The pattern was interrupted, resumed, and finally ended at roughly a year and a half. That does not mean every Neanderthal baby followed the same timetable. Far from it. Feeding depended on the mother's health, the season, available food, another pregnancy, illness, and whether other nursing women were nearby. A separate isotope study led by Alan Tessone examined hunter-gatherers from prehistoric Patagonia. The results suggested that supplementary foods could begin between about 9 months and 2 years, while breastfeeding sometimes continued until 5 or 6. Weaning was not a single day, it was a long bridge. At one end was milk, at the other was the full adult diet. Between them lay months or years of tasting, chewing, spitting out, trying again, and returning to the breast whenever food was scarce or comfort was needed. So what crossed that bridge? Probably the softest version of whatever the group had. Imagine your family beside a fire at the edge of a woodland. Someone has dug up starchy roots and roasted them beneath hot ash. Another person cracks a bone with a stone and scoops out the rich marrow. Meat simmers in a hide-lined pit heated with hot rocks, or cooks slowly near the flames until its fibers loosen. You cannot chew the tough pieces. An adult can. A caregiver bites off a small amount, crushes it between the teeth, mixes it with saliva, and places the softened mouthful against your lips. This practice is called pre-mastication. The word sounds technical, but it simply means chewing food for a baby before the baby eats it. Anthropologist Penny Van Esterick described pre-mastication as an important second arm of infant feeding in many traditional societies. Before blenders, metal grinders, and packaged food, a human mouth was an efficient food processor. It could soften meat, crush seeds, break down roots, and test temperature before a mouthful reached the child. To a modern viewer, that may sound unhygienic. In the deep past, the alternative could be no usable food at all. The likely menu varied enormously. In a warm environment, you might receive mashed fruit, berries, tubers, or nut pulp. Near water, adults could offer fish or broth. On grasslands, softened meat, fat, marrow, and cooked roots may have mattered more. Seeds and grains could be ground between stones and heated into a thin paste. There was no universal Stone Age recipe. There was adaptation. Alyssa Crittenden's research with the Hadza of Tanzania helps show why children's diets could never be separated from the wider group. Hadza families obtain food through gathering, hunting, digging tubers, and collecting honey, but food flows through social networks. A child does not depend only on what one parent finds. Older siblings, grandparents, and other adults can carry, share, prepare, and offer food. That wider network may have been one of humanity's greatest feeding technologies. Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy calls humans cooperative breeders. In plain language, human children are often cared for by people other than their mothers. A grandmother can mash food. An older sibling can hold a baby. Another nursing woman may sometimes provide milk. A successful hunt can feed several families. Your prehistoric high chair was a lap. Your food processor was another person's hands, stones, teeth, and fire. Your refrigerator was the living landscape. Then came the counterintuitive twist. Agriculture did not automatically make feeding babies safer. Farming created more dependable stores of grain in many places, and grains could be turned into soft porridge. It also brought crowded settlements, contaminated water, more contact with animal waste, and diets sometimes dominated by a narrow range of crops. A bowl that looked easier to swallow could still carry dangerous microbes or provide too little fat and protein. Breast milk may have remained a crucial safety net during this transition. Later prehistoric communities also experimented with feeding vessels. In 2019, Julie Dunn, Katharina Rebbe-Salisbury, Richard Evershed, and their colleagues analyzed tiny spouted clay vessels found in child graves in Bavaria. Chemical residues showed milk from ruminants, meaning animals such as cows, goats, or sheep. These objects are sometimes called prehistoric baby bottles. But they belong to farming societies with domesticated animals, not to the vast earlier world of mobile hunters and gatherers. Before herding, there was no convenient supply of cow or goat milk. For most ancient babies, human milk was not one option among many. It was the foundation of survival. The tiny vessels also carried a hidden risk. A narrow clay spout would have been difficult to clean. Milk spoils quickly. Without soap, boiling routines, or knowledge of bacteria, a helpful invention could become a trap. Technology did not always beat the older system of nursing, sharing, chewing, and feeding food fresh. The biggest myth is that prehistoric parents simply gave babies scraps and hoped for the best. Their methods were not careless. They required constant observation. A caregiver had to notice whether you could swallow, whether a root was too fibrous, whether meat was too hot, whether you were still hungry, and whether illness made you return to milk. There were no printed charts, but there were experienced mothers, older siblings, grandmothers, and memories carried across generations. You learned to eat by watching faces around a fire. You reached toward food. Someone softened it. You tasted smoke, fat, fruit, roots, and meat long before you knew their names. Each mouthful introduced your body to the landscape and your mind to the people who kept you alive. Modern baby food arrives smooth, measured, sealed, and labeled by age. Ancient baby food arrived through relationships. That may be the deepest answer. The first foods were not only nutrients, they were acts of cooperation. A roasted root had to be found. A bone had to be broken. A seed had to be crushed. A mouthful had to be cooled. Someone had to stop what they were doing and feed you. You are 6 months old, and the world has no jars, no spoons, and no baby formula. But you are not without baby food. Your baby food is the entire group.